Dan, Dobrodošli, everyone. Welcome to what I think is among the most interesting panels that we have here, a microcosm of the entire theme of this Dubrovnik Forum, Age of Multipolarity. Okay, now we're going to hear from countries that are experienced in this realm of navigating between different vectors. I'll say a bit more later when we welcome our first panel, but without taking any time, I have the honor of introducing Ms. Maka Bochoshvili, who is the Foreign Minister of Georgia, and she will give us a scene setter of keynote remarks. And so, Foreign Minister, please, you have the podium. Okay.
Thank you.
Please.
So, Excellencies, dear guests, ladies and gentlemen, it's a really great honor to be here in Dubrovnik and to address you at the Dubrovnik Forum. First of all, I would like to thank my dear friend, Foreign Minister of Croatia, for inviting me and for providing this valuable opportunity to contribute to such important and very timely discussions in Dubrovnik, in this beautiful city, which is with its rich history and openness and resilience, which is perfect place to reflect on changing dynamic of today's international politics and the role of multi-vector diplomacy in today's geopolitical landscape. We very often speak about changing world, global transformation, and the emergence of new centers of power as if we were merely observers. In reality, we all are participants in them. The decisions we make today shape not only the future of our own countries, but also international order that is formed before our eyes. That is why I believe that Georgia is one of the strongest examples of multi-vector diplomacy. What does it mean today? Our history, our geography, our security environment, our security interests requires us to strike the right balance every day between principles and pragmatism, between openness and security, and between national interests and international cooperation. Georgia truly stands at the crossroads. Around us, different powers, competing visions, interests, and strategic ambitions converge. Living in such an environment requires prudence, precision, and responsibility. Our geography has gifted us with many challenges throughout our history. But it also taught us how to face them without letting them stand in the way of opportunities. Today, as centers of power multiply and economic competition increasingly shapes international politics, the role of countries that connect rather than divide has become more important than ever. That is precisely the role Georgia plays today. As the world searches for new trade routes, the resilient supply chains become an essential element of global security. Georgia's geographic location has acquired renewed strategic importance. The Middle Corridor is no longer just a transport route. It is an emerging geo-economic corridor connecting Europe, South Caucasus, Central Asia, and East. It is a space where trade, energy, digital connectivity, innovation, shared opportunities, common interests come together. Georgia's ambition is not only to be part of this process because of its geography, but to be a reliable, predictable, and responsible partner. We should never forget that no economic project can succeed without peace and security. A country with 20% of its territory under Russian occupation advocates for peace more than most, not out of weakness, but because it knows the true value of peace better than anyone else. That is why ensuring stability remains one of the highest priority of Georgia's foreign and domestic policy. Peace is foundation of development. It is peace together with macroeconomic stability and consistent economic policies that has enabled Georgia to become one of the fastest growing economies in Europe and in wider region, around 9% annual economic growth in recent years. Strong economic growth, record tourism, expanding exports, and rising foreign investment and business-friendly environment demonstrate that peace and stability translate into economic success. We are investing in modern infrastructure, expanding our ports, road and rail infrastructure, developing energy and digital connections that strengthens not only our countries, but entire region's competitiveness. At the same time, our foreign policy is guided by a very simple principle, but very important one. For us, multi-vector diplomacy does not mean choosing partners. It means building more partnerships. We are deepening cooperation with Central Asia, strengthening ties across the Black Sea region, and expanding our economic engagement with Middle East and Asia. Georgia has free trade agreements with some of the world's largest markets, creating a unique opportunity for our country to serve as an economic, investment, and logistic platform connecting different regions and different economies. Georgia's multi-vector foreign policy has never meant and does not mean any ambiguity about our strategic choice. For us, Europe is far more than just political or economic union. It is community of values, and that is why integration into the European Union remains Georgia's very firm strategic choice. At the same time, we believe that stronger Europe is built through openness, connectivity, and broad network of trusted partners. At the same time, Georgia stands ready to contribute to that vision, and we are ready to do so. Brussels' attempt to respond to Georgia with a policy of ignorance and isolation towards a country that is vital for Europe's connectivity and that has been a reliable partner for many years is not only unfair, but also strategic mistake. Ladies and gentlemen, throughout history, moments of profound change have always tested the wisdom, courage, and vision of nations. The world does not move forward when challenges disappear. It moves forward when societies find ways how to overcome that challenges together. In such times, dialogue is not just a choice, it is a necessity. And cooperation is not simply an aspiration, it is the foundation upon which lasting peace, lasting stability, and progress are built. We believe that in today's world, success belongs to those who remain open, competitive, and reliable in this modern world. Thank you very much. This is my work.
Well, we've had the perspective from Georgia, and now we will turn to other countries to get their perspective on this in the time we have remaining. And I've been reminded, and please permit me and understand, our hosts are strict on keeping our time. So we've had a perspective from Georgia, so let's turn to Armenia. And let's have the perspective. Now, I'm going to do my best with everyone's names, but bear with me. I did okay with the Georgian foreign minister, but we honored to have Deputy Foreign Minister from Armenia, Minaxan Safarian. How's that? Safarian. And Deputy Foreign Minister, it's totally appropriate that you lead off, because we've seen in Armenia really some significant changes and moves. And you've had recent elections, and even before the elections, there have been quite significant developments in how Armenia is navigating its position. So I am very interested to hear your approach to this topic. Please, sir.
Thank you, Edward. It's really an honor and pleasure to be here in Croatia, Dubrovnik, and participating in the forum and this panel. And I want to greet all of my colleagues here. The panel. I would like to echo. I would echo many things that Minister Bashorishvili has said about the standing of our countries, I would say, because South Caucasus, where we are situated, is a region where multipolarity manifests itself prominently. And that's why I would say not only Georgia, but we as neighbors, we have multi-vector foreign policy as well. And it is also reflected in our foreign policy of balanced and balancing relations with the outside world, as well as the flagship initiative of Armenian government, the Crossroads of Peace, which is essentially connecting north to south and east to west. So we try to have balanced relations with our partners in bilateral track, as well as balancing our relations, balancing the foreign policy in terms of, these poles reflecting themselves in the region. So this essentially is what is important at this moment. About the change that you have mentioned, yes, we found ourselves in security challenges in recent years. So we have transforming relations with Russia. We have our relations with the EU as a priority, and EU integration as a priority for my country. The Parliament of Armenia has adopted a law that tasks the government with EU membership, and we are expanding our relations with the European Union. Recently, in May, we had both Armenia-EU first summit in Yerevan, as well as the European Political Community summit, that were really a milestone for Armenia's engagement with the Europe, and our relations with the US have been developing on a fast track, and in that sense, the Armenia-US strategic cooperation I have to mention the strategic cooperation signed with the US, as well as the the Trump route for international peace and prosperity that Armenia and the United States established and signed. Recently, we have signed the agreement on this framework, which will be a part of this crossroad of peace that I mentioned. Apart from that, we have developing relations with the Asian region. Our defense cooperation is moving forward with India very prominently. We have trade developing with China. China is one of our top trade partners, and to the south as well, to the Middle East, Iran. So it is really a multipolar setting, and we are at somehow we are out of our comfort zone, but we are trying to manage all these developments together.
Well, Deputy Foreign Minister, that's a great overview. I'm going to come back to you because there's some particular threads there that we can discuss. Because as you maneuver in the space, it's possible that new directions towards one have a positive and harmonious reaction. At the same time, reaction can be less enthusiastic by some others as you navigate the vector. And that's, again, why I think this is such an interesting discussion. Now, I'm going to use all of my training and experience from Johns Hopkins sites, where I'm an alumnus, and my travels overseas to welcome the State Secretary of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Mongolia, Mungtushig.
That's perfect.
Lakanav.
Tanajo, yes.
Lakanav.
First part.
Well, the first part.
Perfect. That was perfect. Thanks.
Thank you for your gracious understanding. And please, sir, you have the floor now.
Well, thank you, Edward, and hello, everyone. And it's my pleasure to be attending the Dubrovnik Forum for the first time and be a panelist on this important session. And, you know, as we all know today, international relations are undergoing a profound transformation. And before I go into the lessons that I hope to share with you, I'd like to give a brief thing on Mongolia.
Yes.
And its foreign policy, of course, so
Please.
that we can have a clearer picture.
Yes.
You know, Mongolia became a democratic country and with a market economy in the early 1990s. And since that time, we revised our foreign policy concept. And ever since then, we've been consistently pursuing peaceful, open, independent, and more importantly, multi-pillared foreign policy. And so some of you know the unique geographic location that we're in. We're located between Russia and China. We have only two neighbors. And, you know, maintaining good and stable relations with both Russia and China has been the top priority of our foreign policy. And for that reason, we established, you know, comprehensive strategic partnerships with both Russia and China. But at the same time, we actively pursue cooperation and partnership with other countries under what we call the third neighbor policy framework. Actually, the third neighbor, this term actually coined by former US Secretary of State James Baker when he visited Mongolia, when we just became a democratic country. So discussions on multipolarity and the emergence of multiple power centers have become increasingly prominent. But at the same time, however, the pressing need, international community faces a pressing need to avoid polarization and division and resolve difference through dialogue, mutual understanding, and peaceful means. So foreign policy that we pursue shares many features with the multi-vector foreign policy adopted by many other countries, or the increasing number of countries. So Mongolia's multi-pillared foreign policy is not merely a response to geography. It's a proactive strategy that we actively pursue in order to preserve our security, independence, and expand our international partnerships. Under what we call this third neighbor policy, we have actually established strategic partnerships with the US, Japan, Korea, Germany, Italy, and Kazakhstan in Central Asia, for example. So we've been very active in that sense. And of course, we do face challenges. like many other countries. For many small and middle powers, multi-vector diplomacy has become a practical strategy for navigating this complex international environment. But multi-vector diplomacy is often misunderstood as a policy of indecision or neutrality. But I don't think it's innate. It's a deliberate strategy that actually seeks to promote constructive partnerships and cooperation with multiple partners simultaneously, avoiding excessive dependency on one certain country or single power, while maximizing opportunities for cooperation. But the concept of multi-vector diplomacy remains attractive, but its implementation is becoming increasingly difficult and challenging. First, perhaps the most challenging is the intensification of great power competition. And strategic competition, geopolitical tensions, and competing visions of world order are creating new pressures on states to align themselves with one side or another. Countries that seek to maintain balanced relations often find themselves facing questions that were less pressing in the past. In such circumstances, maintaining strategic flexibility and multi-vector or multi-pillar diplomacy becomes increasingly difficult. Secondly, geopolitical competition is causing shrinking space for neutrality or less space for diplomatic maneuvering. And the challenge becomes even greater during international crisis. Armed conflicts, regional disputes, and global emergencies often generate intense diplomatic pressure, especially on smaller states. States may be expected to publicly support one side or another, or condemn another, and in such moments, balancing principles, national interests, and international relations require exceptional diplomatic skill. And domestic factors also play an important role, because multi-vector diplomacy requires consistency, strategic patience, and broad political consensus domestically. So changes in government, because we've been experiencing political turmoil in the past few years. Yes. We have had 3 governments in the past 2 years. So the changes in government and political polarization or shifts in public opinion can complicate efforts to maintain a coherent foreign policy. So that's a problem. So, well, experience of countries like ours, Mongolia, demonstrates that balanced diplomacy can preserve our national security, independence, and of course strengthen resilience and expand international opportunities. But however, success requires credibility, consistency, economic diversification, and a clear understanding of national priorities and interests. So, countries positioned between power centers like ours, the objective is not to choose permanent sides, but rather it's to maintain the freedom to cooperate widely and engage constructively and make decisions based on our national interests rather than external pressures. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Muhtushig.
Muhtushig. Can we stay on first name basis?
Yes.
So,
yes.
all of
Edward.
us. But I was going to do that anyway. It's to keep it more informal. But
please.
Muhtushig, thank you so much. And this I think this was very well designed, Ivana, because we've heard from 2 of our representatives, and we're going to hear from Azerbaijan momentarily after you finish. But this is an interesting contrast, if you'll let me observe this, Ivana, and then I'll introduce you in your name. But we have, you see a fundamental difference here, and you were hosting this in Croatia, which is a member of NATO, member of the EU. We've heard that Armenia has a vision with the relationship with the EU that they're actively pursuing. And of course, this is not really a possibility for Mongolia. Geopolitically, or the European Union does not extend really that far. So your portfolio is very interesting, and now allow me to introduce Ivana Živković. And I'm reading here because I want to get your title right. She is at the Assistant Secretary General level, and she's the director of the UNDP Regional Bureau for Europe and the CIS. So, Ivana, in addition to your points, maybe you can address, how does your office look at such a diverse region that they're navigating, but also some of them have, in that complex array, some of them have proximity to the European Union and access that others do not. So please.
Thank you. Thank you very much, and it is great to be here. I'm almost every year in Dubrovnik. So this Dubrovnik's history also reminds us of navigating complexity, and this is just very pertinent to this today's topic. On your question about the region I work in, Europe and Central Asia, it's quite diverse, and as you said, some of the countries are have chosen to follow the path of EU accession. For United Nations Development Programme, we're present in 170 countries in the world. We work in 170 countries and have physical presence in 130. And for us, the choices of the governments are the work that we support them with the help of our donors. And in the EU accession process, the chapters and the different parts of the process are very much aligned with SDGs, the Sustainable Development Goals. So we're not doing something that is outside of our scope of work. Rather, we, as UNDP, work very hard on governance. We have done it for many years before. So respecting the choices that countries make, we have the country program documents that we negotiate, and based on that, we support the areas that are most needed. We also see, based on our presence in many countries, that multipolarity is lived as both choice and as a pressure, and how to diversify partnerships and to avoid over-dependence, keep the channels open and protect development gains is really what countries are very much involved with. And in this view, from our perspective, we think that multi-vector diplomacy creates space for countries to navigate this complexity, and while the development gives them the foundations to use that space effectively. So through our work, we feel that countries are provided with more real choices when institutions can deliver and economies can also create decent work. Services can continue under stress, as we see in the war situations and crises and natural disasters, when infrastructure holds and people trust the public institutions. Here, I want to bring to your attention that UNDP publishes the Human Development Report every year, and since 1990, and only after the pandemics we have seen that human development is on the decline, while the wealthier countries were able to rebound. More than half of the poor countries are having a difficulty in catching up. And we measured this progress by looking at the income, but also at the health opportunities and education opportunities. What really makes threat to progress of overall development is definitely the crisis and wars, and also the climate change. Speaking of climate change, we see how multi-vector diplomacy and through it regional cooperation, for example, in Central Asia, is really bearing results. The member states are working together on common goals, on mostly tackling climate change, knowing that these different issues they cannot deal with at a national level. Rather, they need to increase cooperation. So this is one very good example from our work that we see on desertification, on different issues with water issues in Central Asia and others.
Thank you. Ivana, thanks. And that definitely addressed our topic and the perspective that the UN brings. And now we turn to Azerbaijan, which also brings a very important and compelling, and I can say this as someone who specializes in this region and who's lived and worked in this region for many years. I want just everyone to know that how important the energy dimension is in this region, and how every time it comes up, you hear this. It's bringing, the pipeline is bringing Azeri gas from Azerbaijan. So the impact is felt here in this region, and it's strategic and something that the United States has recognized. And just as Armenia has a strategic partnership now with the United States, so does Azerbaijan. So if you would illuminate this for us, I would respectfully welcome the Honorable Shaheen Sharyov.
Yes.
Did I get it?
Shahyarov, yeah.
Shahyarov.
I have two Shahs in my name and surname. Shahs means kings.
Okay, that's right. Exactly. So the honor is even additional. We're additional. We have royalty here, and given your particular role as a director in analysis and strategic studies there in the MFA. Please.
Thank you, Edward. And first of all, I would like to thank the host, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Croatia, and I would like to congratulate them for such a professional organization of the forum, and also very thought-provoking forum. And having served as a diplomat of Azerbaijan in Croatia, and also being a graduate of the Diplomatic Academy of Croatia and the University of Zagreb, and it's my special privilege and honor to come and to return to Croatia in my another capacity. And as it's like the topic of the panel actually reflects the daily life of our region, like or all the participating states here. So this shows how this region is vulnerable in one sense, and also it gives us some more opportunities. So in the opening session of the Dubrovnik Forum, it has mentioned the geography really matters, and it could bring an immense opportunities, strategic opportunities, as well as it can present challenges. And as Azerbaijan, we doesn't see our geographic position as a location. Oh, it's not our choice. We actually consider it as our national identity, because we consider ourselves, like Azerbaijan, as the integral part of the South Caucasus, as well as Central Asia, the Turkic nations, Middle East, Europe, and Asia. Why we are considering this? Because all of the activities or issues happening in these regions directly or indirectly affecting to our country. So the foreign policy of Azerbaijan have to be developed in such a way that we can get more opportunities than the challenges coming from the different regions. And of course, with that, we having a relations and policy with different regions, and with this we managed to transform the geopolitical challenges and competing interests to the platform for sustainable cooperation. And because we always prefer to act across the dividing lines than rather to go along them. And I always, in my speeches, I always trying to reflect to special facts or historic facts on different issues. And today here, I just want to make two historical issues which really Azerbaijan successfully transformed the potential flashpoints into a shared economic corporation. The first one was the the contract of the century in 1994. That was a cornerstone for the energy diplomacy or energy policy of Azerbaijan, and later on the Pagut-Tbilisi-Ceyhan pipeline. For both projects, we have actually faced a interest of, let's say, clash of interest of different actors. But diplomatically, we managed actually to solve these problems and to bring the parties in a common ground. And as a result, as you already mentioned, these two projects at the end of the day today, they are contributing very successfully to the energy security of Europe. So, but very important point, we always mention it, like the fundamental principle of the foreign policy of Azerbaijan is a protection and preservation of our national interests. So we always follow this direction, and we always say, and I am underlining it, we have never projected and we don't project the interest of any third party. So this is the fundamental point of our foreign policy, and we have demonstrated that the Azerbaijan's partnership with one country never directed to another one. So this is let's say this is a nutshell. And of course, I can contribute more if you'll have time. But yeah, that's all from my side for the time being.
I understand, and that's you open even that could be a very interesting topic, and I had some countries in mind that would we could pursue. Let me. We're going to come back in round. A second round here, and I'm looking at the time. And Ivana, what I'm going to do, with your permission, is I'll allow the representatives of the foreign ministries to go first, and then if you have a comment, you're welcome there. But just quickly, to precise, I thought this was very, among the interesting topics, it was very interesting that you said it's part of our national identity. Could you just precise what you meant, that this what facet is part of the national identity?
Because the region is always have been a crossroad or the bridge for different regions.
Yes.
So, and the identity have to be formed because of these factors.
Yes.
So we consider ourselves actually Azerbaijan is a Muslim majority country.
Yes.
But also we have really a diverse religions believers in Azerbaijan and diverse nationalities. But we also follow the direction to the Turkic countries. We are sharing that tradition, that culture also.
Yes.
And of course we are sharing the cultures or the tradition of of Europe, as well as the Middle East, so on. So it's a cuisine, culture, nationality, nations. So these all have a mixture in Azerbaijan. So this geopolitics formed our identity.
That's a very important insight, fundamental. And now, if we can return to Armenia. So, and this will be a tip-off because I'll be asking you the same question. Okay, we cannot avoid in this multi-vector that as you turn towards, we mentioned the EU, but also the United States, a strategic partnership with the United States. This is not something that's warmly appreciated in the Kremlin. So can you, and again, and we will have the same, for Azerbaijan to understand. Obviously, you have your own relationships with Russia and each of these countries, but the same question arises. So how do you manage that? Armenia, and obviously, you can share, please, anything about it's been a tumultuous period, and obviously with relations with, and conflict with Azerbaijan, and really dramatic in some ways, and also heartrending. So how are you managing it? And now, in some cases, let me just say that it could have produced a different reaction. It could have. It didn't necessarily have to go in there. It could have been a retrenchment there. But we can talk about Russia's role in that conflict, or non-role, or lack of capacity, or whatever you want to share. But that's really I think the most intriguing question is, how do you manage this pivot there and growing relationship, in particular with the United States, also the European Union, and then managing with Moscow?
Well, I have to mention first that our most important relations are with our neighbors, not the Poles.
Yes.
So the one positive dynamic that we had in recent years is our peace with Azerbaijan, peace on the ground.
Yes.
We have initialed the agreement in Washington, the agreement on peace. And this has brought already immediately some economic developments. Azerbaijan has opened transit for Armenia. And we have also expressed our readiness to open transit through our territory for Azerbaijan. And we are also negotiating with Turkey, and there are some positive developments with Turkey in that sense as well. So the most important dimension of our foreign policy at this point is peace with our neighbors. And in that sense, our bilateral engagement with our neighbors have been more effective and have brought more, positive dynamic than, trying to go for mediation or multilateral frameworks. And this has been the development of the recent years. For sure, I mean, the Washington Declaration, as well as the initialing of peace agreement with Azerbaijan, happened in Washington, and President Trump witnessed it. Yes. But essentially, it was a bilateral endeavor, and same, goes for our delimitation process, etc. So that has been our experience for these several years. But what concerns the relations with the Poles and how they they come into it, I mean, there is no certainty, and I cannot really predict what is gonna be the future. But we are really out of our comfort zone in that sense, and we are trying to manage all these relations to the best that we can. And there is no credible estimate of what's going to happen. But in that sense, I mean, managing your relations with the neighbors is a priority.
And that's I will tell you, as someone who has taught and with my experience here in the region, experienced conflict and worked on managing and resolving conflict, including in this region, I think that's a very important point. That really significant. That from the Armenian perspective, this conflict, the resolution was of a bilateral nature, with the United States providing sort of a final supporting work. At the end, and that's I think quite striking there. That to hear that. I don't want to press, but you let's just say you have the opportunity here. I don't want to take this opportunity away. If you want to say anything about the relationship with Russia, or your perception of that, but you don't have to do that. That's.
Yes. Well, we are open about that. It's transparent, and we have, changing relations in that sense. They are transforming. We have some reassessment of this relationship, but we do not want to antagonize any country.
Yes.
And we have historical relations with Russia coming from centuries ago. So we do really hope that the issues that are there, the problems that are there, will be addressed through dialogue and diplomacy. And we are still optimistic about that.
I see.
So, in this changing world,
Yes.
we are diversifying our economic defense
Yes.
relations through all directions.
Yes.
Certainly we have priorities.
Yes.
But then again, I mean, you see our defense cooperation with India is now
Yes.
larger than with any other country. So
Wow.
that is the situation. Yeah.
Well, that's, again, this is quite striking here to hear that, because, there are countries, let's be open, in Russia's orbit, that Russia does not permit to diversify their thing, and one of them is Ukraine. And we should remember 2014, the trigger for the conflict was not relationship with NATO. It was not NATO expansion, it was not relationship with NATO, it was relationship with the European Union, and in 2014, and that this triggered the original Crimea. So I am quite interested to hear how you navigate this relationship with a neighbor that is not usually tolerant of too much in the way of diversification. And again, we'll hear from Azerbaijan in a moment. But if I can let's come back to Mongolia. So again, you're in a different position. And your relationship with both Russia and China is different. You have a high energy dependence on Russia. China also has an energy relationship there with China. But my question here, let me zero in on this, because your two country neighbors here have both signed strategic partnerships with the United States. What would it take from the United States? What steps to advance a true third neighbor policy? What is it from Washington in Ulaanbaatar would be welcome and interesting and would take you on a path while you have to negotiate, your relationship with Beijing and Moscow? That's, no one's going to deny that. But what would be appetizing and welcome from the United States or the European Union in that respect?
Mm-hmm. Well, before I answer your question, the geographical location or situation that we're in, geography remains a permanent reality.
Yes, of course.
This political reality actually dictates the policy
Yes.
that we pursue, of course.
Yes.
And ever since we became a democratic country, early 1990s, we've been consistently pursuing our foreign policy, which I mentioned earlier, that to maintain both good and stable relations with Russia and China, which we've been doing. At the same time, like I mentioned, what we call the third neighbor policy, I think we've been quite successful in achieving the goals of our third neighbor policy. And the US is playing an important role in that, of course. And, Mongolia and the United States is going to celebrate 40th anniversary of diplomatic relations next year. Just now, this year, we are having this incredible, this project, tangible project, which will pave the way for the capital city for the next 30, 40 years of, water recycling plant, water project, for example. It's a symbol of our bilateral relations. But, with the United States, we have a lot of cooperation. And it's not that we have established a strategic partnership just now, after Trump's administration. No, we established a strategic partnership long ago. Before that, and you just mentioned also the EU. We also have an excellent cooperation with the EU. In fact, I'm traveling to Brussels tomorrow for our joint committee meeting, the 24th joint committee meeting tomorrow. And earlier you mentioned about NATO and the OSCE. Actually, we became member of OSCE in 2012, and we are a global partner of NATO. But not many people recognize that. Yes. But to answer your question, you know, our two neighbors, we enjoy excellent cooperation, and they respect our foreign policy. But of course, they say, you know, you only have two physical neighbors. Yes, we do. Yes. We recognize that.
Yes, sure.
And, you know, you mentioned about dependency. Also, I mentioned in my statement earlier that we are almost 99% dependent,
of course,
on Russia's petroleum products.
This is a fact.
And in terms of trade, China is our largest trading partner.
Yes.
And the total trade of, you know, almost 93% of our total trade is being conducted with China.
Yes.
But at the same time, under the third neighbor policy, we try to attract investment from third neighbors.
Yes.
And, you know, just over 16, 17 years ago, we successfully managed to sign a strategic partnership with the, you know, Rio Tinto group of, you know, Anglo-Australian, giant mining company, right?
Also present in this region.
Yes. And also, 2 years ago, just a year and a half ago, we also signed with the French government and run a mining company to extract uranium in Mongolia. Yes. And they also agreed with China. The French government and the Chinese government has agreed to work with Mongolia. So that's what we've been doing. So I think it's quite an achievement. Yes.
I understand. As I go back to Washington, and if I encounter officials who work on this, again, they might want to imagine other ways to advance investment and cultivate the third neighbor. That's to the extent possible. But let's again return to Azerbaijan. So I'm going to pose the same question as Armenia, as I posed here on Armenia's behalf. What about navigating the relationship with Russia? How do you do that? Obviously, you have an energy power that makes you in some ways a competitor. And again, I mentioned this region. I mentioned Rio Tinto. Rio Tinto is in Serbia on lithium. You know, Russia has an energy relationship with Serbia, and the United States is actively working. One of its most active and significant policy approaches in the region is in sanctioning the Serbian National Oil Company to get the Russians out, because Gazprom Neft is the owner. And I will tell you, in Washington, the Trump administration, they're very serious about this, about getting the Russians out. And out in favor of whom? It would be Azeri gas that would be a primary substitute for Russian gas. And so not just there, you know, in this region, but otherwise, moves towards the West are not appreciated in the Kremlin. And so, from the Azeri perspective, how do you manage that?
Thank you, Edward. So, first of all, actually,
I hope that's a fair question.
Sorry?
I hope this is a fair question.
It is, yeah. That's a geography.
Yes, yes.
And you cannot avoid that. Also, that question. The important thing is, you know, we do have a partnership with different, as I already mentioned, part of the world, with US, with European Union, China, Central Asia, Turkic nation, so on and so forth, as well as Russia. Russia is a neighbor country of Azerbaijan, and we have stable and pragmatic relation with Russia. And what we have actually demonstrated throughout this years, that the strategic partnerships do not have to be mutually exclusive. So that's why our partnerships with different countries, we do believe it's not really contradict to each other. They actually is much more complementary. So, an energy security of Europe, of course, everybody is well know about Azerbaijan's relation and contribution to the energy security, but this doesn't happen today. It's more than 30 years. As I already mentioned, it started from the Contract of Century in 1994. And I already mentioned specifically the fact that even in 1994, which we were only a young independent country, and we have faced in different conflict of interest, but we have managed to solve it and to bring the countries on the same ground, and we are still having the same foreign policy. That's why Azerbaijan today, like, our foreign policy is much more predictable. Like, I do believe everybody knows how open and how predictable is our foreign policy. That's why we are enjoying this strong reputation, let's say, in the world. And it applies to all of the partners. And also, that's important to mention that we have been very active nowadays in different international forums, platforms, organizations, and our main goal is promoting consensus and promoting the cooperation between different partners. And of course, now we do have a stable South Caucasus. I would like to also echo what have been mentioned by distinguished Deputy Minister of Armenia, that the relation between Azerbaijan and Armenia is developing on the peaceful manner. Like, the transit issues are there on the agenda. We are exporting the nationally produced petroleum materials to Armenia. Of course, the transit's open for Armenia. So this shows that, like, the South Caucasus is moving much more prosperous and peaceful environment. And we are following, both of us, on that direction. And it shows that the political will are there. So we have already established the mechanisms how to cooperate, and let's hope very soon we will have the results which we are waiting for. So I do believe I managed to answer your question.
You did. I appreciate that. And I'll tell you what I especially appreciate here, Ivana, maybe you as well, is, and I'm going to mention that I'm a speaker later on the Balkans panel, and I'm going to mention how striking it is to hear I will use this term, goodwill. I hear from Armenia and Azerbaijan, and that expression of goodwill, and that they're in a relatively short time frame. You have a shared perspective, if I can call it that. Obviously, not all issues are resolved, and I know that there, including some of the transportation issues and so forth. But I think it's quite striking there, and we have here in a region, that's 30 years on. Some of these disputes have not advanced. In fact, in some cases, they've regressed. So I find this really, and I salute the organizers here to organize this panel and bring both of you there. Let me quickly follow up and ask, and same question to Armenia. I'm going to pose this. We'll just begin here because we're at Azerbaijan. Are you satisfied with the role the U.S. plays? And I'm focusing on the U.S. not because I'm American, but because there's this, the trip, so forth, and the role that you both mentioned. Is the U.S. actively supporting this and bringing in, not just diplomatically, but where there's investment? What do you say?
Actually, as already has been mentioned, like the initial peace agreement have been initialed with the witness of Donald Trump in US. That was, of course, an important step forward. But we have mentioned always, like, Azerbaijan and Armenia bilaterally are improving their relations and bilaterally solving the open issues. So that's an important point. So it has passed only 2 years from the last clashes between two countries, but we have managed to improve and achieve a lot of results. Yes. So about the border demilitarization, about the civil society contacts, and so on and so forth, including the transit and so on. But of course, it's very important to have, as already distinguished Deputy Minister mentioned, about having the functional of the trip, because it will help also to have a route of the Middle Corridor, which will connect Azerbaijan to Azerbaijan as well as Armenia to the Europe. So it's very important to have this project have been implemented, and I do believe, as has been mentioned, the US is playing an important role in this matter.
Okay, very good. Same question, please, Mr. Sarg.
I share many things that my distinguished colleague from Azerbaijan has said, and in this sense, yes, I believe that the trip, that the Trump route for international peace and prosperity was a crucial, development that built trust in the sense of connectivity, to open the connectivity in the region, which was essential. In that sense, U.S. played an important role in that. So yes, there is a positive role played by the U.S., but again, the most important aspect is the bilateral dialogue and bilateral negotiations that we have with Azerbaijan.
And again, I think a quite striking point to emphasize that Armenia and Azerbaijan are taking the real lead in this, and are the core factors in that. I think that's also quite striking. Unless there's urgent burning remark from Mongolia, if you will allow me. I don't want to deny that, but Ivana, if you want to share any concluding observations, or you don't have to, but I want to give you that opportunity.
Okay, I just maybe want to add that within this, and from our perspective, connectivity and also the trade routes, Middle Corridor, it's extremely important. But not only the infrastructure itself, but rather the soft component of it. So not only the facilitation of customs, the roads, the border crossings, which we are all engaged in, but also the communities, because without this soft component, these trade routes and the people will not remain connected. And for us, as the organization that deals with human development at the center, that is the key. One more thing that I was hoping to hear more about was trust. So we hear that there is a bilateral component that is very strong, and I think it is also, the trust is the prerequisite. It seems like it's going well and in the right direction, but I think that is the ingredient that is also very important.
And you're absolutely right. I'm going to close here just with one observation, because it came up at one of the panels this morning where one of the officials mentioned how trade is so important. And Ivana, you're absolutely right to emphasize the trust factor, because the two are not always linked. And this is very important, and some people forget some very obvious case examples. Who was one of Ukraine's top trading partners in February 2022, right before the invasion? Russia. Who is Taiwan's number one trading partner, significant number one trading partner? It's the neighbor to Mongolia, China. So we have high trade up to 2022 between Russia and Ukraine, very low trust, and we have continuing very high trade between Taiwan and China, very low trust. So it's just a reminder, the complexities of the geopolitical environment. These dynamics are encouraging. Balkans has its own different dynamics, but I tell you, I stand enlightened and also encouraged by this conversation, and I ask the audience to join me in a round of applause. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you for